Hey guys, I'm Vespers. I'm a Ableton Live certified trainer and a live performer and music producer. And today we're going to do a couple of tutorials that are focusing on live performance ability. You know, the name of the program kind of says it all. It's a whirlwind in the studio, and it's amazing what you can do with it in a live environment. Myself, being a live performer, I do a lot of work with this in the live environment. And so today, what we're going to do is a little jam session with this Akai EWI. It's a wind-driven synthesizer. Myself being a horn player, it's a pretty sweet little instrument. So we're going to jam out with this. And then we're going to jam out with a live alto sax. And we're going to be using Ableton's Looper plugin to be able to loop and stack audio, and then once we're finished with Looper, we're going to take the audio and we're going to mangle it with other of Live's instrumentation and features. So stay tuned, hope you guys enjoy it, and I'm super stoked. So. Alright, so we've got a recording of a saxophone in here. This allows us to take whatever's in the buffer of the looper, the audio file, and take it and drag it into an audio clip slot. So we click here and drag up to a spot on our audio track. Now if we click here, you can see we've got the audio waveform that we'd recorded into the looper of the alto sax. So that's phase one of what we can do to move around and mangle audio in live. Now, from this clip here, we can right-click on it and select Slice to New MIDI Track. And if we go here, I'm going to go by quarter note. What this is going to do is it's going to convert every single slice, every single quarter note here, into a separate MIDI note and a separate audio file, rather, and lay it out on MIDI notes in a drum rack. So now I've got all my little quarter note slices laid out from the saxophone in this drum rack here. But the cool part is when I can actually play these from another device. So now I've got an Akai MPD32, which is controlling this MIDI track, and each one of the saxophone notes are all mapped out to a different pad on my pad controller. So I can literally have played in the saxophone, recorded it into Looper, looped it, dragged it from Looper onto an audio track, sliced it to a new MIDI track, and now I can play the saxophone on a drum pad controller. So Looper's been set up to be as simple as possible. And the way Ableton designed it is so that all of the key transport functions such as record, overdub, play, and stop can be controlled from one single foot pedal. In this case, I'm using a Behringer FCB 1010 foot pedal board, and this button right here is the first thing to bring your attention to. This is called a multi-purpose transport button, and it will control all of our transport functions depending on how you use it. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to enter mapping mode, and I am going to map one of the pedals on my board to that button. Now, when I press the foot pedal once, it means the looper is going to enter recording mode. And then after it's finished recording a certain number of bars, this tells us what it's going to do next. So there's a couple of other controls here that we're going to set up first. The way I'm using my looper in this case is I'm using it with a drum beat, and the drum beat is 8 bars long. So I want the looper to record in some segment that's going to mesh up with that. In this case, I want the looper to record 8 bars. After it records 8 bars, it's then going to go into overdub mode. You'll see here I can click on this button and change it. So if I want it to, after 8 bars it'll go into play mode. Using this button, I can toggle between play and overdub modes. So once it's done recording, if it's set here to go to overdub, it'll immediately move into overdub mode. If I tap my foot control once, which is mapped to the multi-purpose transport button, it'll then move it into play mode. If I tap it again, it'll move it back into overdub mode like a toggle. If I tap my foot pedal twice, it'll stop the looper. So that's very handy to have a whole bunch of control purely from one pedal. The next setting that we want to pay attention to here is the quantization. The quantization will guide when the looper will actually start and finish. And in this case, I'm playing it alongside a beat loop that I'm using for timing. So I want the looper to be able to start in sync with that beat. In this case, I'm going to leave the quantization set to global because I have my global quantize set to half a bar. And that works out really well for me and the song that I'm using and my playing style. Then we have song control. What song control means is looper has some control over what happens in the Ableton song. So if we have it set to none, you can click record here and it will not start the song. You can record with the looper independently. If we set to start song, when we click this, it'll actually start the whole track playing. If we set this to start and stop song, when we click the stop button, it'll actually stop the song as well. In this case, I'm going to leave it set to start song. Then we have tempo control. We can actually have the incoming audio material into the looper control the set's tempo. And in this case, we don't want that to happen, so I'm going to leave it to follow song tempo. If you leave this to none, and you try and have it set to record a certain number of bars, it won't do this. It'll just keep recording, which is an important thing to notice because it needs to be able to read the song's tempo. So you need to set it to follow song tempo if you want it to record a certain number of bars and then move into overdub mode. After your recording has been done, you can use these functions. You can reverse the audio material that's in the looper by pressing this, and you can influence the speed. When we change the speed of the looper, of course it will not stay in time with the rest of the track unless we change the tempo of the track as well. The other thing that's interesting about the speed function here is it will pitch it up or pitch it down. So it's not just changing BPM, it's actually changing the pitch more like a turntable. Next we have a couple of controls here that control the length of the loop. These are like loop cutting and slicing tools. So if we have audio material that's in the looper, we can press these to divide the loop by 2 or multiply it by 2. Then we'll see on the far right we have a couple of extra controls. The input to output tells us what we're going to do with the incoming audio signal, if it's always going to go to the output or will go under these certain circumstances. I'm going to leave it set to the default always. Now you'll see the feedback control. And the feedback control, as you can see over here in our info view, says it sets the amount of the previously recorded signal that's fed back into the looper when in overdub mode. In this case, I'm going to leave it at 100% so we never experience a decrease in volume. Then moving back over to our multipurpose transport button, the final two controls we see are undo and clear. Now, when we're recording multiple layers into the looper, such as when we do a first recording and then it overdubs a new layer in, if we press the undo button, what that'll do is it'll remove the last recorded layer of audio that was input into the looper. What the clear button does is it will clear the entire audio buffer and allow you to start again.
I like to map out these to different foot pedals on my Behringer board so I have control over that from my feet as well.